Hey everybody, sorry for the audio quality here. This is just for the little intro. This is Chuck from Agreeing to Disagree, the Chuck and Brad podcast. What you're about to listen to is a snippet from episode 341 that came out this week. We thought about the fact that Thanksgiving doesn't have a mascot. And I made it a point to sit down and, with a little help from my girlfriend Gina, write the story, the origin of Gibby the Thanksgiving Goblin. And that's what you're about to listen to. Christmas has Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the story, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This story about Gibby is going to trump them all combined. That's how great it is. And I think that Gibby's going to take over the United States and become the official Thanksgiving mascot of everybody. From Barack Obama to, I don't even know who else to mention that's on the other side of that. Satan. Satan's going to say, this is my favorite Thanksgiving character. But yeah, so, share this, share the YouTube video, share the Facebook video if you can. Tell people the story. Listen to the story, tell people, embellish the facts, add to it. That's how these stories become ingrained in pop culture, is people make them their own. But for now, with a belly full of gravy and a face full of stuffing, grab your grandmother, pull her close, set your smartphone down right next to you, and listen to this beautiful Thanksgiving tale of Gibby, the Thanksgiving Goblin. This is our Thanksgiving episode, and I have a story that Brad's going to read.
Awesome.
And I'm really excited for this. So Brad's going to read this new original Thanksgiving story, mostly by me with help by Gina. We were brainstorming together, and she was coming up with things too.
I drove while Chuck
so
wrote.
long.
It's not that long. It's 7 pages, isn't it?
All right. Thanksgiving by Charles Alexander Staton III and Regina Thimbleton Mastro.
What?
Isn't that what you put?
No.
I thought that's what you wanted.
Thimbleton.
You did say
I was
Thimbleton.
kidding.
It is what you said.
Nice neg. Good job.
Yeah.
All right. Ow, you're hurting me, Brad said. I cannot believe you're pulling this horse shit again, said Chuck as he rolled his eyes. He yelled back over his shoulder, You're 12 feet away from me. I meant emotionally, Brad meekly squeaked. Meekly squeaked could have been Brad's birth name, and it would have fit.
What do you think about that joke? Isn't that a great joke?
Chuck and Brad were racing back to Chuck's house, where Chuck's mother, Pat, had just left them some homemade hot chocolate. They had bet that if one of them could beat the other in a race back from Rod's Grill, their favorite wiener joint, the winner could have the loser's marshmallows. Chuck and Brad were growing boys, and at 33 and 39 years old, respectively, they needed their marshmallows. Their sneakers pounded the pavement. Chuck shriek-laughed as he ran. By the way, that's like a true statement about Chuck. Yeah.
I do shriek laugh as I run.
If I hadn't have stubbed my toe on that poorly marked cement lip, I'd have bested Chuck easily. This race shouldn't count, Brad assured himself. Brad almost beat him, but as they reached the side door in Chuck's cool house, it was clear that Chuck had won. Brad grumbled and considered getting in his car to leave, like forever. But instead, he decided to deal with the fact that he lost a meaningless foot race, and he may have to suffer without marshmallows in his homemade hot chocolate. By the way, I would kill you in a race. From Rod's Grill to your house.
Absolutely
Yes.
not. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Maybe from Rod's Grill, yeah. But from Dunkin' Donuts?
Over a distance, I feel confident that I could beat you.
Yeah.
I'm like a human, and you're like a cheetah.
Yeah.
Chuck came in the door and Brad slammed it behind him. As Chuck gleefully shambled over to the marshmallows, he realized there were 2 whole bags, more than enough marshmallows for the both of them. Brad noticed this too, and the boys shared a puzzled look. I knew you guys would be fighting over the marshmallows, so I brought some more, said a voice from the living room. Gina had heard them enter the house, and she was sure they saw her marshmallow haul. Chuck sadly said, well, thanks, I guess. I beat Brad in a race for his marshmallows. I was going to let him keep them, but then smile at him menacingly the whole time he drank his hot chocolate. To ruin the experience. Gina walked in the kitchen. Yeah, I know. I also know you probably raced past a Cumberland Farms where you could have bought marshmallows. Where's the fun in that? Brad murmured as he secretly wiped away a tear.
I love that.
Gina continued, I went to buy these from Shaw's, but on my way in, some guy with a big red scarf stopped me. He told me he bought extra marshmallows by accident. He kept asking me to take them. The bag was open. That's weird, said Brad through a mouthful of marshmallows. He didn't say much else as he was busy giving Chuck the Heimlich maneuver. More like the marshmallow remover, Brad cleverly thought to himself, informing the readers of the story that Chuck was also eating a dangerous amount of marshmallows while at the same time making a rhyming joke, his favorite kind. Mm-hmm. Through deep coughs and with bloodshot eyes, Chuck asked, why would you take marshmallows from a stranger? Gina said, they tasted okay, and I just got this weird feeling that I should. It was the day before Thanksgiving. Chuck, Brad, and Gina had no plans on this Wednesday evening, and they planned.
You're rushing it. You're really rushing it.
Sorry.
People are. Want to enjoy a story.
And they planned to spend it relaxing in a classic Thanksgiving setting. They poured their hot chocolate, cozied up in Chuck's living room, and put on their favorite YouTube wrestling series, Moves That Made Me Say Holy Shit. They were up to volume 93. Chuck thought, what a classic and picturesque Thanksgiving Eve. Norman Rockwell should paint this on a plate. Does normal Rockwell paint plates? As Brad thought, Rey Mysterio did not mean to fall like that. Gina pondered how the human race got to be this way. As the three started drifting off to sleep, time lurched by. After who knows how long, Brad's eyes wearily opened. Whoa, what time is it? The sun was going down when Chuck and Brad raced home, and it was nearly dark out when they fell asleep. But now it was bright outside. Chuck and Gina woke too. Chuck took the blanket off of them and went to wash his hands, even though he promised Brad nothing gross happened after Brad fell asleep. I'd just like to have very clean hands. Who doesn't like a clean-handed gentleman? Brad took a mental note to wash his hands more often too. Gina was the first to rationalize this. Wait, the sun goes down for like 13 or 14 hours a night right now. There's no way we slept for that long. Brad looked at his phone. Guys? When Brad went to check the time on his phone, he saw something very strange. Chuck looked at Brad's phone in his hand. What are those? He exclaimed. Where the time should be, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, there were just little symbols instead of numbers. Gina squinted at this screen of light. I think the first character is an apple pie? The second one looks like an autumn leaf. The third one is a PSL, Chuck butted in. It's in a hot cup. How can you tell it's a pumpkin spice latte and not just a coffee? Brad asked dismissively. Chuck was confused for a second, and then he spoke the truth, even though it made no sense to him. Because when I look at it, I can smell it. And they all looked at the fourth symbol. It was true. Turkey! Right out of the oven, said Brad. They all looked at each other, jaws agape. How could this be happening? They looked at the leaf, and sure enough, the crisp autumn air filled their nostrils. They looked at the pie, and Gina realized it was just a pie, but the same thing had happened to her. She had smelled the baked apples, the cinnamon, and so clearly. How could this be?
What do you think about this so far?
I'm intrigued.
Right?
I have some suspicions.
Yeah. Good, I'm glad you do.
I paid attention to last week's podcast episode.
Yep.
Chuck and Gina checked their phones. No time, more symbols. Cornucopias, sweet potatoes, corn, pilgrim heads, cranberries. Gina noticed that the pilgrim heads smelled unshowered, while Chuck and Brad wondered why they didn't have a smell. That's a good joke about our cleanliness.
Yeah, right?
While this was odd, it wasn't alarming. What was alarming was what the three amigos saw when they looked outside. Hey, there's no traffic. No cars driving by on Main Street. Not only is there no traffic, there aren't even any cars parked. The town was deserted. They opened the front door and stepped outside. Even during the late hours of the night when Chuck was up editing, not a minute or two would go by without a car. And during the day, the traffic could be stop and go in front of Chuck and Gina's house, State and Manor. The air smelt of spices. It was perfectly November. It was perfectly the fall. There was an orange-yellow glow to every which way they looked. Gourds and Indian corn decorating the houses as they passed. As the trio walked down the street, they noticed more changes. Why are you dressed like that? Brad pointed at Chuck as they passed an empty Dunkin' Donuts. Chuck was dressed in an Old Navy button-down with brown and yellow large plaid squares. The outfit was complemented by a cozy pair of brown corduroy pants and a soft dark brown suede jacket with deep orange Chuck Taylors. Every piece of clothing matched perfectly, looked brand new, and most importantly, was not what he was wearing when they stepped outside a minute ago. Holy fuck, I look amazing! They looked at Gina, and suddenly she was wearing an autumnal sweater dress with shimmering golden tights and wedged boots, complete with a fur trim. Oh my god, this is so perfect, she exclaimed. Brad couldn't wait to look down at his own body. So he did. Brad was dressed in worn, ripped overalls. He had a torn, burnt orange button-down shirt under them, a straw hat, and hay was overflowing out of his sleeves. Am I Scarecrow? He squawked, scaring away some nearby crows.
I love that line. I love it so much.
I was like, oh, clearly, like, he meant, am I a Scarecrow? No, he's Scarecrow. Oh, I got caught up in both jokes. Both jokes, that line.
Right?
What the hell is going on? Chuck demanded. He was actually pretty psyched about his outfit and the idea of Brad as a scarecrow. But this warped Thanksgiving wonderland was at the very least peculiar, and they didn't know what to expect next. Plop! A brown congealed mass had fallen from high in the sky. Gina jumped back. Ooh, a bird pooped on my shoe. Chuck immediately got down for closer inspection. Those aren't bird droppings. Plop. Ah, my eyes, my face, my mouth. Brad wiped away the substance from his cranium. Wait, it's gravy. Chuck and Brad's faces lit up and Gina grimaced. The sky opened up as Chuck and Brad pointed their beaks toward the clouds and happily opened their snouts. But before they could swallow another drop, the reality of a gravy storm hit them. Literally. Every huge drop had to weigh 2 or 3 pounds, and after just a few faces full of gravy, the guys were no longer so excited. We need to get inside, Brad yelled. They had wandered up the street, and Staten Manor was too far away to get to. The barrage of gravy was busting through windows and murdering small birds. Quick, in here! Gina had already sought shelter by breaking into Delecta's pharmacy. It was right on Main Street. And although it wasn't an actual pharmacy anymore, they could sustain themselves on milkshakes and candy until the storm passed. They got inside and slammed the door. Chuck and Brad licked each other clean like two desperate felines. It wasn't sexual, they just licked gravy. What are we going to do about this? We can't live in a world where there's no other people and it rains gravy, said Gina. And right then they heard voices. At the back of the store, right near the coffee syrup, there was a door outside. They looked back there and the normal backdrop of downtown Warren was gone. No police station, no post office, no bike path. And stranger still, it wasn't raining gravy behind the store. Their gazes drifted back to the front of the store. Blobs of gravy were now overflowing the streets and sewers, with more dollops falling every second. They looked back behind the store again, through the door outside, and back there it was a beautiful, perfect autumn day. And more importantly, there were people. Maybe these strangers could lead to some answers. Gina, Chuck, and Brad walked outside. As they approached the figures, one became very, very clear. Santa Claus? Brad stammered. The figure turned around. White beard? Check. Santa hat? Check. Santa suit? Check. Big red scarf? Check. Wait a minute. Hey, that's the big red scarf from the man who gave me those marshmallows, Gina said. Santa smiled and nodded. Gina responded, wow, he gave me his marshmallows and he gave you his red scarf. He's a true Christmas saint. No, Santa was in disbelief. That was me. You didn't get that? I never wear a red scarf. I did that specifically for this payoff. Gina was quiet for a minute. Oh, I get it. Everyone looked at her. You stole his scarf? She didn't get it. Anyway, I gave you those marshmallows so you could see the true magic of Thanksgiving. I chose you 3. But why us, Mr. Claus? You've got like a month left until Christmas. And what the fuck do you care about Thanksgiving? Said Chuck. Brad was nervous that Chuck had cursed in front of Santa, but Santa didn't even flinch. Well, we have a very special situation, and I need your help. Chuck was surprised that anyone gave a shit that he was even still alive these days, so feeling needed felt great. Gina was on the edge of her seat. Brad wanted to seem cool. No big deal, we'll handle it, cool cat. What the shit do you need?
What the shit?
Brad, no swearing on Thanksgiving, Santa scolded him. And I'm not even going to acknowledge how creepy it was that you called me cool cat. Brad hung his head low. Well, we've been tracking the holidays, and fellas, I'm just going to say it. Thanksgiving is sucking balls. Wow, said Chuck. I'm surprised at your use of terminology so quickly after chastising me. But also, wow, said Brad. Gina spoke up. How can we help? And also, please explain what you mean. Santa started thinking out loud. Remember in Freddy vs. Jason? When Freddy Krueger couldn't come back to Elm Street because all the kids were no longer scared of him? So he got the devil to give him Jason so Jason could kill people on Elm Street so they would remember the old killings? You know, that Freddy did? So then people would think it's Freddy and they'd remember Freddy and be scared of Freddy and Freddy would be powerful again, remember? Brad remembered but wished he hadn't. Chuck couldn't hold it in. I'm so fucking psyched for whatever you're about to say. Also, what a great movie. Santa said, holy shit, amazing movie. Chuck was like, dude, so good. And Santa was like, fucking so goddamn sick. Brad again held his tongue. Anyway, Santa said, shaking off the awesomeness of the classic tale, Thanksgiving is in danger of being forgotten. Halloween permeates the American consciousness every year because the holiday is so immersed in pop culture. Suicide Squad comes out, and Halloween is a reason for people to dress like Harley Quinn. People are excited for Stranger Things or the new Thor movie, and Halloween is a reason they can dress up. Halloween continues to sustain popularity for that reason alone. Chuck jumped in. Plus the titties. Ho, 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 don't forget about those titties. Chuck and Santa did a pretty involved high five that, quite frankly, seemed incredibly rehearsed. Chuck was used to having to wait for Chuck to finish high five, so she was already scrolling through her Instagram. Brad was waiting for this expositional moment to finish and felt like Chuck was really ruining the pacing of this explanation. Santa finished the high five and got back to the task at hand. So yeah, Halloween is doing great, Christmas is obviously doing well and better all the time, but Thanksgiving is becoming less and less important. People are still getting together for Thanksgiving, but the love is gone. It's no longer looked at as a true holiday. For a lot of people, it's just an obligation. Gina asked, "What about people being happy to see their family and friends?" Santa sadly responded, "Well, not everyone looks at spending time with loved ones as important. People are less and less likely to want to make that a priority. People are drifting apart more than ever. Thanksgiving is widely looked at as a chore." Chuck and Gina looked at each other, frowned, and agreed. Brad was hesitant to admit it to himself, but it was true. People didn't want to make time for the love in their lives. Brad looked back at Santa. "I don't know if we can fix that, Mr. Claus. We've been dealing with this kind of stuff for more than 5 years. We've been trying to fight people's tendencies to care less and less about love in their lives. Trying to fight to make people care about each other, and we..." He looked over at Chuck. "Well, we don't know how to win that fight." Santa became serious. "I know you have. I know you have. I've seen what you guys do week in and week out. You create for the sake of creating. You bring people together for the sake of laughter and love. It's built into your hearts in a way that seems unbreakable. And now I will task you three to do something that may change the world." Gina, Chuck, and Brad were waiting for the next piece of information that would surely make all of this to make sense. "Everybody say hello to," Santa stepped aside and continued, "Gibby the Thanksgiving Goblin." Behind Santa stood a 3-foot-tall, brownish-gray, chubby, human-like entity. A goblin, apparently. The goblin had long ears, tiny squinty eyes, a few random pointy teeth, and appeared confused. The goblin was dressed like a pilgrim, but with roller skates. Chuck, Gina, and Brad stared at Gibby Goblin. "Hi, hey, hello, John, Jim?" Gibby asked. They were all confused, including Gibby. Brad finally spoke up. "What?" Santa spoke to Gibby. "This is Gina, Chuck, and Brad. I don't even think you know a John or a Jim." Gibby looked at Santa. "Jim?" she asked. Santa turned to the 3 Thanksgiving saviors. Gibby is going to be the new Thanksgiving mascot. With a mascot, people will have a new way to connect about Thanksgiving. Just like with myself or Rudolph for Christmas. It helps us communicate and unify. Think of it. They tried to picture it, but they looked back at Gibby and she was trying to do a headstand. Poorly. She fell over and hurt her stomach. She tried to stand up but fell down. Gina spoke first. "Can she roller skate?" Santa ignored the question. "Come on, think about it. Gibby the Goblin, Thanksgiving plates. Gibby the Goblin, baseball caps. Go Goblins!" They looked back at Gibby. Is she masturbating?" asked Chuck. Hey, knock it off!" Santa sprayed Gibby with a spray bottle, and Gibby shrieked and hid behind a small rock. She hissed at Santa, her forked tongue flicking back and forth.
Ew.
She looked at Brad and said, "Jim?" "Okay, well, here's her leash. See you guys later." Santa threw Gibby's leash to Brad and started getting into a sleigh. Whoa, said Chuck. "This seems like kind of a lot of responsibility. And Gibby seems, Okay, I'm going to level with you guys." Santa closed his eyes and started rubbing the bridge of his nose with 2 fingers. 2 fingers. "Everything I said is true. Thanksgiving is suffering. We need something. Me, Rudolph, the Great Pumpkin, the Easter Bunny, Skellington. We all talked about it." "Jack Skellington is real?" asked Chuck. "Shut up and listen to me. We think Thanksgiving needs a mascot. That is a big part of this. The other part is... Well, I've had it with Gibby. She showed up at the North Pole 3 years ago. Mrs. Claus kept feeding her, so she never left. We think she's part elf, but we tried to integrate her with the other elves, and she ate too." Brad exclaimed, "What? Is this thing dangerous?" Santa immediately brushed him off. No, not to you. The elves are 2 feet tall. Anyone over 3 feet, she's not going to be able to eat. You won't fit in her esophagus, even when she dislocates her jaw." Brad was relieved. "Oh, okay, perfect." Then Brad interrupted himself. "Wait, no, not perfect. I have a million more questions." "Okay," said Santa. "Okay, first off, just like the Christmas elves, Gibby only exists for November and Christmas each year. So from January through October, you won't have to worry about her. Other than that, she can withstand the extreme cold. She fends for herself. Think of her like an outdoor cat." They looked at Gibby. Her pilgrim hat was gone. "Gibby, did you eat your pilgrim hat?" Santa said with an accusatory tone. Gibby crossed her eyes. "Maybe on purpose?" Gibby! Santa pushed more. Gibby started laughing softly. She sneezed and frightened herself. Chuck, Brad, and Gina looked at Santa. Good luck. So she can eat pretty much anything, but she's allergic to turkey. Excuse me? She's the Thanksgiving mascot who's allergic to turkey? Chuck was astounded. Oh, who cares? She can still pretend she likes it. No one has to see her eating turkey. I'm allergic to candy canes and no one cares about that. Brad asked, are you really? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Brad thought it was weird that Santa was exactly as immature as Chuck. So now what? Asked Gina. What's she gonna do? Well, she doesn't do much. She laughs. She can talk, kind of. She does feed herself. She definitely masturbates. A lot. That's what the spray bottle is for, said Santa, holding it out to the group.
So gross.
Chuck reluctantly accepted the spray bottle. Santa continued. That's what you guys are here for. Think of yourselves as her PR team. Get creative. Find out her origin story. Make a classic Thanksgiving story with her. Like Charlie Brown, Grinch, whatever. The main objective is to spread the word about Gibby and use her to bring some commercialism to Thanksgiving. People will get excited when they have something to rally around. Create a whole world. Here's the best way to say it. C, B, and G listened closely. Santa softly spoke. Make Thanksgiving the Christmas of Thanksgivings. Brad spoke first. That might be the worst way to say it. Santa collected his thoughts. Make Thanksgiving the Christmas of holidays. Chuck quickly said, Christmas is the Christmas of holidays. Santa sighed. Gibby farted. Santa looked at them. Make Thanksgiving feel important. Give it a world. Give it depth. Just like Christmas. Make it mean something. Give us stories and heroes to root for. Chuck, Brad, and Gina understood. They looked at each other and nodded. And start with Gibby. They all looked at Gibby. Gibby looked back, and maybe she understood. A second passed, and finally, she spoke. Jim's? Well, Santa's eyes widened as he secretly thanked God that these pals were taking over the responsibility of Gibby the Goblin. You guys are true holiday heroes. Chuck, you've said you're the Christmas king. Well, Thanksgiving is the first step towards Christmas every year. You guys have the opportunity to do something great with Gibby, and I know you can do it. Santa stepped into his sleigh. But Santa, I have questions, said Chuck. The reason I never brought you Christmas-themed Ninja Turtles is because they don't exist, Santa said without turning his head. Okay, that's all of them. Bye, said Chuck, waving. As the three, I guess now 4 friends, watched Santa fly away, some Christmas dust, a.k.a. snow, sprinkled over them, and they suddenly felt unbearably tired. They all sat down in the grass and fell asleep. Hours passed. After who knows how long, Brad's eyes wearily opened. Whoa, what time is it? Brad looked at his phone. It was 8:46 p.m. They looked at the television. Moves That Made Me Say Holy Shit was playing volume 96. Brad felt strange. That dream seemed so real. Chuck and Gina were now awake too, and they both seemed concerned. They all looked outside without saying a word. Cars passed by here and there. Their clothing was back to normal. No gravy to be seen. No straw falling out of Brad's clothing. Chuck walked into the kitchen to get a drink and saw something on the fridge. Guys? Chuck called out. Gina and Brad walked into the kitchen. Chuck was holding a holiday card. It had a beautiful Thanksgiving feast on the front. Inside, it was signed only with a stamp. A red stamp of a Christmas sleigh. It said only 3 words. I'm trusting you. And suddenly they heard a noise upstairs. They all slowly looked up to the ceiling and then heard a confused, stuttering, frightened voice. Jim? To be continued.
What do you think?
That was very good.
Very good, right?
Yeah, I didn't like the part where we licked each other, though.
That's all right. I love the name Gibby the Thanksgiving Goblin.
Right.
I love that it's a goblin. I love that her name is Gibby. I love this whole concept so much. I'm proud of that story. I'm proud of the
as you
story.
should be.
I think so. I think so. All right. I think that's it for this week. I think that's
so
our
too.
Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Jeannie, you have fun?
I did.
You have anything else you want to bring up?
No, I don't think so.
That's it? Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
All right. Well, folks, just please remember to check us out on WBRU.com.
Yes.
Fridays at 1 p.m. in the month of December.
Starting next week, we're going to do a 3-week series of all Christmas shows, in December. And we're going to have a big announcement next Friday, December 1st, 1 p.m., BRU.com, or download the BRU app on Android or iPhones.
Check us out on Twitter or Instagram. I'm at Brad Rohr. That's BradRohrer.
And I'm Discount Chuck on Twitter and Instagram. Jeannie?
You want to tell my Instagram?
Instagram is
Nails by Gina Lauren.
Yep.
And that's all you really need to know. I don't use my Twitter.
It's true.
If you're looking to get your nails done for the holidays, I can hook you up either here or at my work.
That was a cute voice you just used. Nails done for the holidays.
Yep.
You could do a Gibby the Goblin Thanksgiving nail special.
I'm not an idiot.
Oh.
But no, you could like do Gibby nails.
Yeah.
It's just a brown blob on the pointer finger, and then the next three fingers are JIM.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. The first
question mark.
first rendition of fan art for Gibby's.
All right, so I guess the thumb is
Question mark.
is the blob, and then
Yes.
and then JIM question mark are the fingers.
Yeah.
Well, folks out there, thank you so much for listening. We do appreciate it.
Yeah.
We hope you all have a happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah. Gather around, tell stories of Gibby the Goblin, think about what she could be.
If you want to contribute to the Gibby cinematic universe,
chuckandbrad@gmail.com, write us.
We're down. Just give us a characters created by.
Ask your dad, tell him the story, then ask your dad, what do you think happens next? And tell us what your dad said. I want to know. Not you, just anybody listening. Listeners.
Yeah, don't ask my dad.
You can ask your dad.
He would be so confused.
Is this a thing? I Googled it.
Yes. Man, I'm good episode. I enjoyed it.
Right?
Yep.
Wasn't that fun?
Yep.
I was like, it's worth it to put this time in to make this
Absolutely.
7.5 page story.
Yep.
I think it works.
Yep. All right, that's all I've got.
So what I got?
Deuces.